There is something deeply human about wanting to build something enormous. It's almost a compulsion. Governments and developers look at a blank patch of desert or a plot of land and see something that nobody else can quite see yet. A skyline that doesn't exist. A city that hasn't been born. A piece of infrastructure that will define the next century. The pitch is always the same: bold, transformative, unprecedented. And the money that gets committed is rarely small. We're talking about billions, sometimes tens of billions, sometimes hundreds of billions of dollars. The problem is that ambition and engineering reality are two very different things. And history is absolutely littered with the wreckage of projects that started with a ribbon-cutting ceremony and ended with a quiet cancellation announcement buried on page 7 of a government document. Let's start in the flat plains of Texas, where in the early 1980s, the United States government decided it needed to build the most powerful particle accelerator in human history. The project was called the Superconducting Super Collider, and the idea was to dig a tunnel 54 miles in circumference deep beneath the Texas soil, running through the town of Waxahachie. It would smash protons together at energies never achieved before and answer fundamental questions about the nature of matter itself. Congress approved it. Physicists celebrated. Construction began in 1991, and almost immediately the problem started. The original cost estimate of $4.4 billion ballooned rapidly. By 1993, with 14 miles of tunnel already excavated and nearly $2 billion spent, the price tag had jumped to $11 billion with no end in sight. Congress voted to cancel it. Workers were sent home. The tunnels were sealed. Today, those 14 miles of tunnel sit beneath the Texas earth completely empty, home to nothing but groundwater and the occasional curious explorer who manages to find a way in. What's particularly painful about this one is that just a year later, the Large Hadron Collider at CERN in Switzerland began its own construction, eventually discovering the Higgs boson in 2012. The discovery that American physicists were supposed to make first happened in Europe instead. The tunnel in Texas is still there. It just leads nowhere. Now let's cross the Atlantic and go to Germany, where for almost 30 years a project managed to become one of the most staggering cautionary tales in modern construction history. Berlin Brandenburg Airport was supposed to open in 2011. It finally opened in 2020, 9 years late and roughly €3.5 billion over its original budget. The airport serves Berlin, the capital of Germany, one of the wealthiest and most technically sophisticated nations on Earth. And somehow the people responsible for building it managed to install a fire safety ventilation system that was so badly designed it had to be completely rebuilt. There were 14,000 design flaws discovered in the overall build. Escalators were the wrong size, cabling was installed incorrectly, sprinkler systems failed tests. They held a dress rehearsal opening with volunteers, and it was such a disaster that the actual opening was postponed indefinitely. The supervisory board fired and replaced its management multiple times. One of the airport's technical directors suffered a breakdown under the pressure. German newspapers ran articles asking how the country that gave the world the Autobahn and precision engineering could produce something so comprehensively broken. The airport did eventually open, but at a cost so extraordinary and with delays so prolonged that it became a symbol not of German efficiency, but of what happens when oversight collapses and nobody is willing to stop a project and admit that something has gone fundamentally wrong. And if Germany's airport is a story of bureaucratic dysfunction, then North Korea's Ryugyong Hotel is a story of something stranger. Construction began in 1987. It was designed to be 105 stories tall, a pyramid-shaped tower in the heart of Pyongyang with over 3,000 hotel rooms. It was going to be the tallest building in Asia, but the North Korean economy collapsed, and construction halted in 1992 with the concrete shell standing unfinished against the skyline. For 16 years it sat there while official maps of the capital simply omitted it. Photographs showing the building were banned. Construction resumed in 2008 but has crawled forward ever since. The building has been fitted with glass on its exterior, but it remains completely empty. No hotel has ever operated inside it. It has been under construction in one form or another for nearly 4 decades. And North Korea has spent what is estimated to be around 2% of its entire annual gross national product on a building that has never once been used. But for the most ambitious and perhaps the most instructive failure of the modern era, you have to look at Saudi Arabia and the project known as the Line. The pitch was extraordinary even by the standards of people who are used to extraordinary pitches. A city 170 kilometers long and just 200 meters wide, carved into the desert of northwest Saudi Arabia. No cars, no roads at street level. A giant mirrored wall running the length of the structure. 9 million people living inside it. The estimated cost was somewhere between $500 billion and $1 trillion. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman announced it in 2021, and the images of what it was supposed to look like spread around the world. It looked like science fiction. Workers and heavy equipment moved into the desert. Tunneling began. Billions of dollars in contracts were signed. And then, gradually, the reality of what had been promised began to run headlong into the reality of what was actually possible. Engineers and planners working on the project began to raise concerns internally. The physics of moving millions of people through a structure 200 meters wide simply didn't add up. The transportation system required would have needed to run trains at speeds and frequencies never achieved anywhere in the world. By 2024, reports emerged that the planned population had been slashed from 9 million to a few hundred thousand. The scale of what was being built in the desert was reduced dramatically. By 2025 and 2026, it became clear that the project as originally conceived was effectively over, a multi-hundred-billion-dollar idea that collided with mathematics and lost. What connects all of these projects is not just the money, though the money is staggering. It's the pattern. There is always a moment early in the life of a project like this when someone in the room knows that the numbers don't work, that the timeline is unrealistic, that the engineering assumptions are flawed, or that the demand being projected simply isn't there. And in almost every case that we have looked at, that person either doesn't speak up or they do speak up and nobody listens. The people making the decisions are too committed, too publicly associated with the vision, too afraid of the political cost of admitting a mistake. So the project continues. More money gets spent, more concrete gets poured, more tunnel gets dug. And by the time the scale of the problem becomes undeniable, the cost of stopping is almost as high as the cost of continuing, and the people who started it have often long since moved on. What's left behind is usually strange and melancholy in equal measure. 14 miles of empty tunnel in Texas, a 900,000 square meter concrete skeleton in Pyongyang, miles of excavated desert in northwest Saudi Arabia, half-built roadway bridges on a man-made island in the Persian Gulf. These places have a quality that's hard to describe if you've never visited somewhere like them. There's the physical structure itself, which is often genuinely impressive even in its incomplete state. And then there's the gap between what you're looking at and what you were told it was going to become. That gap is where all the ambition went. That gap is what $1 billion looks like when it's been spent but produced nothing that works. I think what makes these stories matter beyond the financial numbers is what they say about the relationship between power and accountability. Projects of this scale almost never get built without someone very powerful deciding they want them to happen. And the bigger the vision, the more dangerous it is to question it. Nobody wants to be the person who told a king or a president or a prime minister that their legacy project is a mistake. So the questioning doesn't happen, or it happens too late, and the rest of us are left looking at holes in the ground wondering what might have been done with the money instead. The failure of a megaproject is never really just an engineering failure. It's a failure of the systems that are supposed to catch these things before they collapse under their own weight. And until those systems get better, there will always be another tunnel being dug somewhere, another tower being poured, another impossible city rising at the edge of a desert, funded by the absolute certainty that this time, finally, it's going to work.